I did not expect to do another stream on Twitter. What, a week after doing one, or I guess technically you could count Saturday stream as also being about this, but I wouldn't because those are generally about pretty much any topic that is brought up by the chat, and usually the conversation is steered depending on where they want to go with it. Um, Over this past weekend, Cenk and Jimmy, two of the men that I have watched for multiple years on this website, which is no small feat because there have been a lot of people that I've watched for some period and it just kind of teetered off from. Um, they got into a heated back and forth on the single payer discussion that has, I guess it's kind of a sequel to the AOC back and forth from last week. So I'm going to read some of what they wrote, to each other, and then give my commentary and talk about how it's just really sad that when you watch a lot of the previous TYT videos when Jimmy was still a commentator on their channel, they have almost kind of a melancholy vibe to them at this point because you're watching that knowing that they're going to all call each other fakes and phonies and grifters and all the rest of that trash. And again, I believe in criticism. I think that there's no person who's above it, which is why, as someone who doesn't, I guess, think as negatively of AOC as Jimmy, I still think that he should have the right to discuss her in any way that he would like. If TYT can make hundreds of videos about Trump, I don't understand why he's not allowed to make several videos, however long they are, about this congresswoman. But again, there seems to be a weird protection order that she has by these people, which is very disturbing when you consider that they're going this far and trying to shift the conversation about implementing a healthcare policy to a discussion on the political philosophy of one man. Let me go over here and grab this nonsense. Yeah, he's been tweeting away. So I have to scroll down a little bit, so it might take a slight time longer. Okay, this was 21 hours ago. Jimmy, I tried 1,000 times to hold back. I was trying to help you, but you're hopeless. Why the F would you burn down your own house? This is dumb attack on Anna Kasparian. Makes every sane progressive defend her. Your ego and reckless temper ruined you. And then Jimmy responds to that tweet by saying, Cenk's executive producers bad faith attacks former employees. Then he blames the former employees for responding. His pro-war NATO dupe, Anna Kasparian, has caused this with her childish tantrums. Funny, when Cenk was begging to come on my show this year, he had no problems with me. That's another thing. When Cenk ran for Congress, Jimmy was one of the people who interviewed him, as he does with several other candidates in the past, including AOC when she ran in 2018, but the year before, so prior to the actual election, when she was still a candidate. And there seemed to be no bad blood between the two. And as bad as people like Sam Cedar are, because they've spent years just making videos about Jimmy over and over and over again, at least they're consistent. At least they frequently will state that they've had a problem with him for an allotted time period of multiple years. So Cedar will often say that he's had a problem with him since the 2016 cycle. And with TYT, or most particularly Cenk and Anna, it just seems like they have AOC so far up their behinds that they just don't want to accept the validity of critiquing her. And there were actually some people who were saying that it was wrong for Jimmy to bring up Anna's friendly interview with Albright, the Secretary of State under Clinton. and how this has nothing to do with her position. But her having that brought up against her, so it being brought up against Anna is a direct response to Anna bringing up Tulsi against Jimmy. So in response to her using a politician to try and make Dore look hypocritical, look bad, whatever, Dore uses a politician that she was friendly with to make her look bad and hypocritical. And it's even worse on Anna's side because Tulsi is seen as being an anti-war person, which is something that both Jimmy and Anna support, while Albright is considered a pro-war person, which is something that Anna has had multiple segments on TYT lambasting. But then when you have a chance to speak to one of these people, you're gushing and talking about how great of an interview it was, and taking pictures with them and all happy, and the rest of that stuff. And again, I'm not someone who would really personally like, I guess, using, because it is guilt by association. You can interview somebody and not agree with what they have to say. But it was her who introduced the concept of using your associations with a particular politician to try and make you look as if you're in the wrong, or you're hypocritical. Because in her little tweet where she introduced herself into this conversation, she said, "I can't believe Jimmy would be this mean to AOC, but he hasn't criticized Tulsi for a damn thing." So do you see how she started the concept of using someone else to shame a commentator? Let me go further into these tweets because there's a lot of them. Okay, so Tim Rattray says it's really unfortunate that he has to be the one to start a conversation about pressuring progressive Congress people that could have been so constructive, but nope. And now he's doubling and tripling down on his tirade. And then Cenk responds to that. He puts that in quotations, and he says, "This is nowhere near true. Before Jimmy Dore jumped in with half-baked plan to hand GOP leader speaker position," he's referring to Kevin McCarthy, "I called for progressives to challenge Pelosi within the Democratic caucus. I did it publicly and privately. Jimmy made a mess and is now attacking just progressives." And then Jimmy responds to that by saying, "Really, you called for doing that? How'd that pressure campaign work out for you? LOL. You are a sad little man who has no idea how to actually fight or challenge power since you took 20 million from Clinton donors. Get your head out of your bottom and get on board. And you're lying about GOP taking over the speakership. That's not how it works. How much money are you being paid to try and stop this?" That's another thing that is kind of getting on my nerves with these progressives fighting each other. Everybody is going around accusing someone else of having a position that's not the same as theirs out of financial interest. And, even though I probably align more with Jimmy on this matter in terms of I do want to see them withhold their vote for Pelosi to get a vote on single payer. If someone opposes that strategy, I don't think that inherently makes them bought out or receiving coins from some, hidden hand that is directing them to do certain things or to take certain positions. But I'm just saying that that's something that personally irritates me because a lot of the criticisms directed at Jimmy over the past 2 or 3 weeks have been people saying that, "Oh, he's only doing this for money. He's trying to do this so he can get some coins and he can take a vacation." And, I already talked about how that commentary where they were, accusing him of being a grifter is done for is stupid for 2 reasons. One, because these commentators who are criticizing him for making money by talking about this stuff also make money by talking about this stuff, which I don't see a problem with personally. But my point is, it's very strange to see people who are literally enriching themselves in a similar fashion, albeit with different positions on these issues, pretend as if they can't believe that someone would get paid discussing this type of stuff. And two, because they're trying to make his position seem, what's a good way of saying it? They're trying to justify or nullify rather his position's validity by just saying, "Oh, he's doing this so he can get some coins." He can't actually believe what he's saying. This is all an act. And again, if you were to go to Anna or Cenk or Cedar or Viglin or any of these people and tell them, hey, I know you disagree with me, but uh, I know it's really because you're getting paid by Clinton donors and you're trying to get paid on Patreon and blah, 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 blah. They would get upset with you. But when it's someone they don't agree with who also is on the left, they feel a need to, I guess, justify it, to try and use this hidden hand that doesn't actually exist, because as far as we can tell, there is no special interest donor giving Jimmy money for YouTube videos, to try and make his position seem less, what's a good way of saying it's his own and more an installation by somebody that, again, they can't prove actually exists. But they are trying to infer that his position is only, and this is what's weird to me. When you watch Cedar's videos, and we'll get back to Cenk in a minute, but if you watch Cedar's videos, he talks about how Jimmy has been like antagonistic for 4 years. And when he talks about AOC or Jimmy's criticisms of her, he tries to say, oh, it's financial interest. But if she wasn't around 4 years ago and he had these positions back then that were antagonistic to what these other progressives want, I don't understand how those two things line up as him being a grifter, but also someone who has been consistent in having this position. So they're admitting that he's had this position for years before AOC made her debut. But I guess now it's a grift because she's in the picture. It's funny how that works. Now, another thing that Cenk wrote, and I am reading these backwards because I'm not going to scroll through all of this. There is nothing wrong with forced to vote. What's wrong is the timing. Let's do forced to vote 10 more times at the right time. Right time is not an excuse to wait in this case. The right time was before this vote. I like being aggressive, but you have to do it strategically. But notice that while he's telling you to wait for the right time, he's not actually stating what he believes the right time to be. So I could say right now, oh, subscribe to me. Don't subscribe to this other person. Subscribe to me and subscribe to them at the right time. Is that next week? Is that next month? Is that next year? Is that the next decade? I'm not giving you specifics here. I'm just telling you what you want cannot happen at this point, maybe later. Okay, but when is later? So that's why that particular line was ridiculous. So Jimmy responds by saying, yes, we need to keep waiting. You are such a good boy, Democrat. Did Cenk get his talking point straight from Neera Tanden again? But you have to admit that if he believes the timing is wrong, and these people are trying to paint Dore as being the one who has no solutions, doesn't it appear that the person who's less specific in when they want something to be done could be considered the person who actually doesn't have solutions? So if Cenk is not specifying when he would like to see this strategy attempted, all he's doing is acting as opposition to the current plan proposed by Dore, and not actually stating when he believes to be the ideal time to get this done or to try this. No, this is really cartoony. I'd never thought I'd see two of them just go back and forth over and over again all day long on Twitter. It wasn't all day long, it was all afternoon. And go to their next tweet. Oh, somebody sent me a message on here. So someone on Discord, somebody was like, "Can this person be taken down at last?" Okay. Problem with Jimmy Dore isn't mediocre strategy or forced to vote. I supported in beginning because I think pressure on progressives in Congress is helpful. They're too hesitant. Problem is that Jimmy then proceeded to burn every sane, honest progressive and make it about his ego. No, that's not true. See, someone can come and talk about something, and the response by others is not dictated by that. So, for example, Jimmy did not speak negatively or speak ill of Anna or Cenk or really any progressive that's not a lawmaker until they all weighed in on him on Twitter. They all came and started critiquing him and talking about how hypocritical he was because Tulsi. And only then was he responding to them and starting to say negative things about them. But if anyone made it about his ego, it was the progressives who, instead of just doing videos or writing tweets about why they didn't think his plan would work, they're writing and doing videos about uh, his personality, times in the past where they didn't agree with him. If they're Emma, they're trying to say that he was evil at work. Stuff that whether you agree with it or not has nothing to do with articulating why his proposal does not work. Jimmy Dore has single-handedly checkmated the so-called progressive members of Congress and also much of the so-called progressive online news media to be exposed as Democratic Party functionaries. Yeah, I find it really disturbing that in Cenk's tweet he says, "Oh, he made it about his ego," but all of them are talking about him. Like, think of how insane this is. Progressives are supposed to believe in, wanting single payer, free college, all this different stuff, and to challenge the leading members of the Democratic Party who they believe are antagonistic to that agenda. So these people, their bright idea of making change, of doing something that's going to further, their goals, is to make a whole bunch of tweets and videos about a commentator on YouTube. This is how they're going to create change. Grifters and technocrats, I think deep down they know that raising the issue of trying to get the progressive members of Congress to fight against establishment Democrats exposes them to be sheeping. Well, listen, a lot of them don't want to lose access because AOC has gone on TYT more than she's gone on Jimmy's show. She went on his show once when she was running, and then she, never. It was like Jimmy who. But a big part of it is wanting access. Another part of it is just, trying to turn this into a game of a popularity contest. It's kind of like Buckeye, if I'm pronouncing, am I getting your name correct? Because I'm like last one. Yeah, it's kind of like if I made a proposal about how to, I don't know, deliver toys to children across the whole state of, my state's California. And then in response to that proposal, instead of people explaining why they didn't think the numbers were there or why it wouldn't work, they start talking about my past positions and how I was so mean to them personally. And they go from the proposal I have and they turn it into this discussion on me as opposed to what I'm proposing. It's just funny to watch Cenk say, or write rather, he made this about his ego when they literally shifted the conversation from, does this proposal work, to Jimmy was so mean to me. And then as he's saying that Jimmy burned down all the other progressives, they literally brought themselves into the conversation. I haven't seen Jimmy tweet one goddamn time about Anna prior to her talking trash about him last week. I hadn't seen him talk trash about Cenk at all. He even put Cenk on his show when he was running for the House until Cenk started running his mouth about him yesterday. The only people that Dore makes videos about are lawmakers and sometimes commentators on TV. He doesn't sit around doing stuff responding to other YouTube commentators. Cenk says, I give a lot of, and I take a lot of, try not to get demonetized. I fought 1,000 battles against every wing of every party, but I don't get sensitive about it Jimmy Dore has his feelings hurt so much he lashes out wildly against all other progressives. His angle is to be the most pure. And then V Sound Circle says, I actually agree with force the vote, but seriously, leave Cenk and Anna alone. They made you. Like Cenk and Anna are his parents. Like two of them got into bed and they were like, "Oh, let's create Jimmy." Or are they like what do you call it, Frankenstein and the monster? They powered him up. Now he's going around and he's out of control. Correction, they benefited way more from having me. I gave them progressive credibility that they were more than happy to fundraise off of, while also taking 20 million in Clinton donor cash. In fact, one day Cenk told me I have to make more Jimmy Dores. Yeah, how's that going? I didn't hear of him until he was on TYT. So I guess maybe that's what the person was referring to. But just because they made you have higher name recognition, you're not allowed to criticize them or to ever have them get on your nerves to where you respond back to them. Because again, he didn't say anything about Anna until she started running her mouth, which she has every right to do before somebody tries to call me sexist. But don't get surprised when after you attack this person, they respond back to you. That's like me going to Jimmy and saying, "You're trying to destroy progressives." Then he insults me like, "I can't believe he would do this." Like, well, if I hadn't talked about him, he probably wouldn't have said anything about me. Anna made this whole thing snowball into this situation right now. She made it about herself and exposed a lot progressive commentators to be incredibly shallow. Well, you saw, look, I had one of my commentators, Ruben, doesn't like Emma Vigeland, and I had no problem with her because I hadn't seen much stuff with her in it. And then I'm watching her on Sam Cedar's show, and she's talking about Dore is sexist, and he treated me and these people this way when we worked with him at TY. And I'm just thinking to myself, it took him getting his name trending on Twitter for you to come out with this big expose of him. But also, a lot of these people do get off on this idea that they can use their gender and ethnicity to deflect criticism. Because he didn't say anything about AOC's ethnicity or any of these other people or gender, and they're trying to make it about that as a way of, again, deflecting from the criticism. So if he makes valid points about how these people have been elected to a second term in the House, their seats are safe, they can challenge this lady. They're going to go, well, you're being hostile toward women of color. Even if he's saying the exact same thing about Mark Pocan, who, as far as I can tell, is not a woman or a person of color, or Ro Khanna, who's not a woman. So it just kind of seems like if you say something about these people that they don't agree with, they can't just explain why those criticisms don't land or don't make sense or why they believe that to be the case. They have to turn it into this weird character analysis like they're psychiatrists. They can tell you if you have a problem with somebody's ethnicity when your criticisms are literally based towards them as a lawmaker and you're extending these critiques to other people of other ethnicities. And, you know, my point, they have to take it from what this is actually about to other trash. Because really, Tulsi shouldn't have been brought up at all. And she's being brought up literally everywhere by these people as though, I don't know, Jimmy was her primary fundraiser. Like that's his kryptonite. I'm going to get back at Jimmy Dore. Oh, but he's making good points about AOC. I know, I'll bring up Tulsi. And then he'll go, ah. Like he's the Wicked Witch of the West where he starts melting when you mention Tulsi's name. Challenging progressives to defy Democratic leadership and force a floor vote on Medicare for All is so obvious. I've been pushing for it for 2 years. The question is what vote you push on. The one where you hand the speaker position to GOP without any plan is not the one. And then Dore says, sorry, but Cenk Uygur is misleading his audience again. If Pelosi doesn't get enough votes, it doesn't get handed to the GOP. That's not how it works at all. He's gaslighting everyone now and running interference for the Democratic Party. Don't fall for it. Okay, so that's the tweet that incited this incident yesterday. And again, there was a clip of was it Lawrence O'Donnell that Jimmy plays on his show a lot of times, and I wish I had it, but I don't actively script stream, so I don't know when I'm going to mention it. But he talked about how progressives are not cared about by the Democratic Party because they know that they'll vote for them because they can like scare them with the Republicans. Oh, vote for the lesser of two evils and whatnot. So it's really similar to how with these House progressives, they might not like Pelosi, but they think the Republican is worse, McCarthy. So they're trying to get them to be scared and vote for her, even if they don't agree with her on pretty much anything at all. And it's like those two situations are so analogous because people are trying to, what's a good way of saying it, make the case that you can't risk this lady who you already don't like as speaker not getting another 2 years because somebody else that you don't like might get it in 2 years, or rather get it for the next 2 years. When again, the only way you get these people to actually say, oh my God, this person is serious, they're not going to play patty cake for me and I can't scare them into doing things, is when you show them you're willing to lose certain stuff if you don't get your way. If you watch Dore's very first forced to vote video, he said he was willing to forgive them for their bad faith attacks. I think he said that because he knew they would do what they're doing now. Yeah. This is not the first time that progressives have been attacking him. On Twitter, they like to call him a certain I word that is supposed to mean men that can't get a date with women, even though he's married, but whatever. Sam Cedar has made over 20 videos on him. So he's not a stranger to getting attacked by, people that are supposed to be on his team. It's just really disturbing that I would expect the conversation in the political arena to be about politics, people's positions on politics, whether what he's trying to do makes sense. And instead, we're spending days on Twitter crying about who has the nicest personality and why is he so mean. And the people who are calling, like when I was reading Anna's message, I wanted to just throw my computer out the window because she's attacking him for having angry outbursts on videos. When if you go watch TYT, we've all heard her swear, we've all heard her scream, which, anyone should be able to do that. But it's just the fact that she literally acts in the same passionate manner about this topic that Jimmy does, but for some reason she has immunity, so she gets to yell and scream and not have anybody tell her that you weren't yelling when Bernie was on the show. But if Jimmy yells and screams, instead of explaining why his position's wrong, you weren't yelling and screaming when Tulsi was still in the arena. It's just sad to see commentators on this website act like MSNBC stooges. I had one of my subs actually say TYT is MSNBC after hours. And I remember that's one of the things that, like, what's a good way of saying it? It seems like every progressive male commentator gets called sexist. And I didn't say I told you, but they pick and choose when you are sexist. So if I've done, for example, 10 videos criticizing Liz Cheney, they don't get mad because that's not somebody they like, even though it is a woman. But if you criticize AOC, now you're sexist, and you're also possibly racist too. Even if we can go on Dore's channel and show dozens of videos where he's yelling at Biden, at Sanders, at Trump, Obama, Bush. Like I never thought I'd see a day where somebody can be that consistent and still have people accusing them of having a particular hostility directed towards women. This is also showing that a lot of the left has no idea how to use leverage in taking power. Yeah, when you are trying to make change, you have to take risk. You have to say, okay, I might get stuck with the Republican as the Speaker of the House, but I would rather show them that they can't control me, because I guarantee you in 2 years, it's going to be the same crap. We don't have enough Democrat or progressive Democrats to hold a vote and actually make a difference. And if we don't vote for, I don't know, Hakeem Jeffries, we're going to get Kevin McCarthy is speaker, or Liz Cheney is speaker, or Steve Scalise is speaker. They always find a way to keep pushing back the time period for when these people finally grow balls and say, listen, we don't care if we get a Republican as speaker. We care that we're not getting the agenda that we had voted on. Whether it passes or not, we want to vote on it. And if you don't vote for it, to hell with you and your speakership and your goofy little party that is so awful. They lost seats in the House and Senate against a president who had a botched reaction to a pandemic. I've never heard of radical change that has a safety net under it. I'd like for someone to give me an example of that, where there was some radical change, and before they did, they're like, "Oh, we got to make sure that we have, no one gets mad or this doesn't happen." Like, you have to take risk in everything you do, otherwise you don't get anywhere. It's just so damn pathetic that we have all of these commentators. And I always thought when you had more voices discussing something, people should at least have the right to say something about these issues and have people respond to their opinion, whether they agreed with it or not. Instead, we're having a thing where there's a circle jerk of progressives who all want to have the same view. And they're taking the one person who disagrees with them, and they're trying to turn this into a lesson in psychology where they're examining whether he's racist or sexist or if he only yells at women and all this trash. And it's funny too, because if you remember Cenk's congressional campaign, what was he upset about? Them bringing up old blog posts that had nothing to do with his positions. And he's basically doing the exact same thing with Jimmy right now, where he's, instead of addressing why his position is wrong, or rather not having that be the sole thing that he addresses, since that's the reason this man's name was trending on Twitter, we're going to get into a popularity contest about who's nice and mean, and if he has ego or if he's burning bridges. This is also showing that a lot of the left has no, okay, I already read that. I thought you wrote something new, because I saw the one word right there. And I thought I was going to see some brand new comment from you. I got all excited. If I was a dog, my tail would be wagging. Oh, I can't wait to read what you wrote. It's like, oh, it's the same thing. No, but I do want to get back to that I word, because it's I think it's worth addressing. So there's a group of men online who I don't affiliate with, that are known for not being able to get with a woman, and sometimes they congregate in groups, but they're supposed to be associated with men that say mean or nasty things about chicks, and that's basically just what they're supposed to be known as. Men who can't get with women, that attack women, verbally, and sometimes physically, but again, a much smaller example of them do that. So imagine my surprise when I go on Twitter and I see a married man who is talking about a politician being called part of that group. So now that word that was supposed to mean single men who speak critically of women is now being turned into whenever a man criticizes a woman for anything. Because remember, Dore has criticized Rokana. When Ro went on his show, he criticized him for the exact same stuff. He criticized Mark Pocan, again, Obama, all these other people that are male that he's criticized. and that's fine. But if he criticizes a woman, now he's part of a romance group, even though the group is supposed to consist entirely and exclusively of men that are not in relationships, and he's married. What's sad is Jimmy Dore actually supported Cenk during him getting smeared by the Democratic establishment. Me too. I'm not a Cenk hater. I've done videos criticizing Cenk, but when he was getting smeared, when those blog posts first came out and he left the Justice Democrats, I did a stream about it. That's my second highest viewed video. So I'm not some Cenk troll or TYT opposition. If they say something that's true, I'll admit it's true. But I think it's really sad that this man who was on their show, who supported Cenk pretty much, as far as I can tell, during every, I guess, major instance where he was getting smeared, to where Jimmy even went after Bernie for retracting his endorsement of Cenk when he ran for the House. I just think it's really sad that person is now being said to have burned every bridge and have this massive ego and bleh. They've just been arguing back and forth for weeks. And like I said, I get kind of annoyed by these character compilations or where they're like sitting around just talking about someone's personality because they have no bearing on anyone's life. Whether you think Jimmy is sexist or not, if you do a video calling him that, is that now suddenly going to make the 30,000 people that lost health insurance under Trump be covered again? Like, I don't understand where this makes anyone's life better. He even, yeah, I remember that. But at the was that the RNC convention, the one before this one, it was Cenk, it was Ben, and that other guy, I forget his name. They were all sitting together, and then Jones crashed their show, and when it's Alex Jones. He's basically the only person who actually assaulted someone at the convention. Yeah, I remember that. And TYT was live streaming and he showed up, and then we have the like 5 or 6 different camera angles of that incident. Do you remember when there's another point during the RNC convention where um, Jimmy and Ben are arguing about something? I think it was like whether Jimmy could bring himself to vote for Hillary, and then they were like cursing each other out. So don't talk to me like that ever. If you had told me at that point that Jimmy's going to do his own show, and then for what half a month we're going to be on Twitter talking trash about him every day because he said something we don't agree with, but we can't just leave it at that. We have to character analysis. I would have thought you were crazy. Yeah, politics is just such a. It's really just kind of a thankless job because you sit here and you educate yourself on these issues, and then you offer a position, and people, whether they respond to it or disagree with it, a lot of times try to go from that position and shift the discussion to turning this into a popularity contest. I don't like this person, so I'm going to write a couple of tweets talking trash about them. Yeah, this is it's just sad. And let's not forget my favorite thing to mention, that Jimmy was the first person to interview AOC, and her and the rest of the House Democrats, with the exception of Ro Khanna and Tulsi Gabbard, are so cowardly that they can't go on his show. Like, they're afraid to go on there. Like, that show is their kryptonite. I even gave this question during my stream on Saturday. Imagine how cowardly I would look, where as I'm saying that I'm going to stand up to all these foreign dictators and threats to the US and protect people with my positions, I'm afraid to go on the show of a guy in his garage on YouTube who has no power, who is not going to assault me. He just wants to ask me some questions about my job. And like, oh my God, I'm scared. Again, if you had told me 5 years ago that the number one thing that progressives in Congress are going to be afraid of is not Republicans or Democrats, but a guy on YouTube doing videos, I would have said you were crazy. But he is their boogeyman, because they're not doing a bunch of tweets about Kevin McCarthy or about, Pelosi opposing single payer. They're just crying about a guy on YouTube. Like, think how insane this is. We've gone, what, 8, 9 months without any form of relief for people under this virus crap. And instead of them doing videos about that, or spending half an hour talking about that, they'll do a half an hour stream about Jimmy and the nihilism of his politics. It's like, who cares about that? People are dying. Apparently, they're told by Democratic leadership not to go on his show. Well, again, I personally think they're cowardly for not going on there. Because remember, these are the most powerful people in the world. When you're a member of the House, the Senate, you have power. Certainly above an average commoner citizen like myself. But you're afraid to go on the show of a guy on YouTube. What does that say about them? I mean, really think about that. You run for office. If you put me in there, I'll fight for you, and I'll make sure that you get this and that. And then after talking that good game about all your leadership and courage and strength, oh, you want me to go on Jimmy's show? I'm scared. I'm afraid. These are your progressive leaders. And again, this doesn't mean you vote these people out. It doesn't mean you start hating them. But no one is above criticism, which is what these people are trying to do when they're crying about Jimmy, is tell him you are not allowed to criticize these people. Again, it's one thing to say, hey, I don't agree with this critique because X, Y, and Z. They're not doing that. You can't criticize them, you grifter, you Patreon money taking YouTube fraud. Not a single one of them is explaining or articulating why he, as a commentator, is so goddamn important that you would spend, like, again, I haven't seen any Democratic or Republican politician's name trending while Jimmy's name has been trending repeatedly, and so has Cenk's, but whatever. I just think something's wrong with that. Apparently, they're told by Democratic leadership. Okay, I read the thing. This is going to be a running gag. I read comments that you wrote because you didn't write anything new. No, but I think it's sad that the people who are supposed to be our leaders are afraid to go on a guy's show. I find that very pathetic. I think Dore represents the evolution of a lot of people during the Obama years that got radicalized after a disappointment of his presidency, then with the Sanders campaign. Well, yeah, you had a president that was like hope and change, and then continued most of Bush's policies, 2 wars to 7. You know the thing. So you go from that, and then you get this old man with Sanders who appears to be different, and certainly has a voting record to reflect that, and it's someone that you believe in, and then he gets screwed over by the DNC twice, and then in both instances he endorses the person who is supposed to be his polar opposite, and campaigns for them thoroughly, and then tells you to support this person. That's why some people said 2020 is 2016, but slightly worse because you can't go outside. where you were of the belief that, hey, maybe things are finally changing, they might get better, because there was really a thing with progressives between both of Sanders' campaigns that stuff was finally starting to look up. Sanders had more name recognition. He was out fundraising his opponents, and it just came tumbling down. So a lot of people are sick of the DNC. They are sick of that party. And even if I don't share maybe the same view, I understand. I'm not going to try to say that, I would look at this situation and think there's some hope left. Again, especially when the few progressives that you've managed to elect to Congress are playing patty cake with the rest of the Democrats, and they're not challenging them to get the things they want done. And it just feels like it's a never-ending game of, oh, not now, not now. So they have, what, 6, 7, 8 members of the Justice Democrats in the House. What will we be ready to do something when they have 20 or 30 or 40? Like it's never going to stop. AOC can be in the House for 10 years and she will still have people defending it and going, well, she needs another term. Just wait until 2035 or 36. Like, no one is going to look at that, any rational person, right, and think, this is something I can believe in. I can just keep being disappointed over and over again, and then still want to enthusiastically support these people and criticize someone on YouTube for critiquing them and their long game strategy, which is counterintuitive to everything they run it on. Because remember, when these people run for office, what do? We need to change things. People are dying. People don't have health care. People don't have good paying jobs. And then after getting elected, oh, it's okay. Just give me 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 more terms. Then I might finally do something courageous and that'll change things. The disconnect between Dore and others is he actually represents the audience of progressive media, but he doesn't have any loyalty to the Democratic Party, and they do, which creates friction. Yeah. Just like I was donating to Republicans in some cases because I don't want the Democrats to have the Senate. I had one of my subs come on here and go, oh, I hope they get it so they don't have any excuses. And I'm just thinking to myself, you don't get the game now that if they get those 2 Georgia seats and Harris is their 51st vote, they're going to say, oh, we don't have enough seats. We need to wait until 2022. And then the real change is going to happen, because then we can have a super majority if we vote for us in all these different states. They're going to keep finding an excuse and a way of dodging culpability for not doing anything. But people will support Democrats just because they buy into that BS. That, oh, if you just give them everything, then they'll start doing things you like, because they don't have any excuses. Even though, like I said, if they win the Senate, their first thing they'll say is, we don't have enough seats. You got to vote for us in 2022. Because it never stops. It's all of these Democrats and these progressives that are playing this crap right now, they're all doing the same thing of, it's not time yet. You have to just keep waiting for these inevitable periods where things will magically be much easier. God, it is so aggravating. And it's a good reason as to why people are turned off by this stuff. Hey, Buckeye, I know me and the Democrats got the Senate, but we only have 51 seats. So even though you thought we had no more excuses, well, we do, because we don't have enough seats. You got to vote for us in 2022. I'm really amused by the fact that people actually think the Democrats getting the Senate back is going to change things. Because Manchin's going to vote for the Republicans, Sinema's going to vote with the Republicans. I mean, there's members that cross over, and they're just not going to have this guaranteed safe bet of having their things start to pass. But again, because people want to believe that giving these people everything they want or say they need actually changes stuff, they're just going to vote for them anyway. Like, I really don't understand what the point of that is. I would rather the Republicans have the House and the Senate if the Democrats are not going to fight or do anything to pass things that actually help people. If they're going to keep the same fossilized hag as leader that they've had since I was in second grade, why would I want that person to keep that has represented this party as it's lost election after election to remain in power and have her flunkies ascend to these leadership positions after she supposedly retires in 2 years? Should have retired 10 years ago. I just think it's absolutely insane that like they have really manipulated people into believing this filth. Like, you have people who think just give the Democrats everything, vote for them in the House and Senate, and what really just aggravates me, right, is that you see their incompetence. It bleeds across the U.S. They had an election where the Republican president had over 300,000 people die from with the virus. And again, I've talked about how that isn't all his fault because they have different, state leaders that are being stupid. But it's like you have a backdrop like that. And imagine if it was the reverse. Imagine if Biden was president and all these people died. The Republicans would have tore him a new one. They would have talked about his irresponsibility. He has all his blood on his hands, yada, yada, yada. But the Democrats are so weak that they managed to lose seats in a situation like that. And you want to tell me that they're fighting and if we just give them these things that they don't even want to fight for it. That's why they get smashed everywhere. God, people their blind loyalty to that party is really disturbing. The other thing that's disturbing again is Jimmy being called part of a romance group because he criticizes a female lawmaker, which again, they're very selective with when they care, because when Kyle criticized Liz Cheney, when Cenk criticized Liz, nobody was upset. No one that was a progressive anyway. And they weren't saying that they were sexist. So, that's just another word they use to hide behind not wanting to see this person get called out for any potential wrongdoing that they might have. They're trying to find a way to make this lady above criticism, so they use her gender as a way of doing that. It's like if I had people that were writing stuff about why my points don't make sense, and then in response to their arguments that are constructed against what I have to say, I call everybody racist and say that they're attacking me for my ethnicity, even though they never mentioned my ethnicity, and they do the exact same thing to other people who are, other races as well. It's just a really sad cycle. I didn't think that I really made a mistake. I thought when the Democrats won the White House after all those, recounts and whatnot, it was just going to be, kind of like a little quiet month and a half. You'll have Jimmy making videos and whatnot, and TYT will do videos, but just there wouldn't be anything that you could really say about progressives as a whole. But they've been having a literal Twitter civil war. Like they're all at each other's throats over this one commentator criticizing this politician. And that's sad. It's sad that people will defend a politician to such an extent that they'll invent reasons for why she's being criticized as opposed to actually focusing on what she's being criticized for. And it's sad that they'll take an argument about making people's lives better and twist it into this discussion on somebody's personality. Because we all know everybody online is a psychiatrist. They can tell you if you have a problem with a group of women or whatever, even if you're saying the exact same thing to men as well, but whatever. I thought John Fox had a lot of nerve saying Jimmy was committing lateral violence to the movement by going after AOC. Well, yeah, because she's their sacred cow. She's their person that, and I want to make sure that that term is not being used to describe her appearance, because people do say nasty stuff about the way she looks. I don't condone that, but a sacred cow is a person within a movement, group, work of fiction, whatever, that is so revered by people that the mere act of criticizing them causes those that like them to go after you or attack you, or to like your criticisms to be seen as this blasphemous thing simply by being critiques. So that's what she is to Josh. So that's why he said that. Because AOC isn't the progressive movement, neither is Bernie. There is no one person that is the progressive movement. Because and we know that because when Sanders endorsed Hillary, he had a bunch of progressives get mad at him. When he endorsed Biden, a bunch of progressives got mad at him. So, that's not something that we even need to question at this point. He is a person who is a significant figure in it. As I would say, a lot of these politicians are, but he's not the leader or the central thing that if you go after will be destroying the movement, because he's just one person, one politician. And then it's like, you guys prop up AOC, the media and TYT and the rest, and they talk about her every day. So why are you surprised when Jimmy goes after her, but not Ilhan Omar or Ayanna Pressley or Rashida Tlaib or Ro Khanna or whoever, when he's the only one that he knows these people pay serious attention to? I can't believe he's criticizing the person that he knows is very talked about and thus will get more people to pay attention to his argument. What a sick thing. No one can explain that. People just get just like a politician so much that, the mere act of criticizing them. Because I think if someone is really confident in their beliefs, who they like and dislike, while they might not like seeing them criticized, they will at the very least, what's the way of saying it, not believe that those criticisms are like doing major damage to them or like so impossibly, because all he said was he didn't think she was being effective enough or she was changing things, which I've seen other people say as well. And if you believe that she is, he's not saying that you can't believe that or that that's illegal. But it is illegal for him to criticize her because she's a woman. So she's above critique. She has her V shield waved up. This really does remind me of that time that Shapiro wanted to interview her, and she said that he was catcalling her, when all he did was request, I think it was either an interview or a debate that Shapiro wanted with her. And I was just looking at it myself, you really just said that this married man who asked you for a political discussion, not, I don't know, a trip to Denny's, is catcalling. Like it all traces back to that. I'm going to use my gender as a shield to deflect from doing certain things. God, people this is really sad. I don't watch most of these individuals that are going after him, so it's not like been put off by somebody I was attached to. But it's disturbing to see Cenk um, speak in the same manner as, because again, Cedar is someone who's always had a problem with Jimmy. Whatever, that's nothing new. But Cenk is someone who, as far as the public could tell, was always friendly with Dore. To where they literally were speaking to each other on Jimmy's show this year when Cenk ran for the House, and it just never stops. They're all of them just find a way to have a problem with each other and accuse somebody of being rigged or being a grifter or being whatever, and it's really gross. But anyways, I'm gonna get off of here because I've talked about this for an hour. Hopefully, this is my last stream on this because I know it's getting a little redundant. You know, there are certain new things that are being talked about with each one, but whatever. I'll put up videos throughout the week, and then I'll do another stream on Saturday. So thanks for showing up. I wish we had more than one person speak, but it is what it is. Benjamin Dixon implied that Breonna Joy Gray was for supporting. Yeah, see, that's another example of of Black people using their ethnicity to attack other Black people, because he's basically saying she's not enough of a person to have the opinion that she has. So white people can be Democrats, they can be Republicans, but if you're Black, you can only agree with me, which in and of itself is racist. But that's nothing new. They like to find weird ways of attacking Black people in politics specifically. Look at what they do to Candace Owens. I don't even like her, but I always point out the fact that all those conservative commentators, she's the only one where instead of people talking about why what she says is stupid, they go and start saying that, oh, she's only doing this because she's getting paid. You don't see anybody saying Ben Shapiro's doing this because he's getting paid. You don't see anyone say that Sean Hannity is doing this because he's getting paid. You don't see anyone say that Tucker Carlson's doing this because he's getting paid. It's only her that they try to use the financial thing as a way of, blocking or dissuading people from discussing any of the points that she might make that they can't refute. But yeah, he just going back to Dixon. He wrote some creepy tweets about Jimmy, and he's just another one of them. So because Jimmy's not playing for the right team, if you support him and you're Black, you're part of you're this racial epithet. It's really sad. But look, I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. Have a good day.